grasp your infinite wisdom. Who can fathom the depth of your love? You are beautiful beyond description, majesty enthroned above. And I stand in awe of you. I stand in awe of you. Holy God, to whom all praise is due, I stand in awe of you. And I stand in awe of you. I stand in awe of you. Holy God, to whom all praise is due, I stand in awe of you. I stand in awe of you. I stand in awe of you. Father, we love you. We worship and adore you. Glorify thy name in all the earth. Glorify thy name. Glorify thy name. Glorify thy name in all the earth. Jesus, we love you. We worship and adore you. Glorify thy name in all the earth. Glorify thy name. Glorify thy name. Glorify thy name in all the earth. Spirit, we love you. We worship and adore you. Glorify thy name in all the earth. Glorify thy name. Glorify thy name. Glorify thy name in all the earth. Glorify thy name. Glorify thy name. Glorify thy name in all the earth. Sing the wondrous love of Jesus, sing his mercy and his grace. In the mansions bright and blessed, he'll prepare for us a place. When we all get to heaven, what a day of rejoicing that will be. When we all see Jesus, we'll sing and shout the victory. Let us then be true and faithful, trusting, serving every day. Just one glimpse of him in glory will the toils of life repay. When we all get to heaven, what a day of rejoicing that will be. When we all see Jesus, we'll sing and shout the victory. Onward to the prize before us, soon his beauty will behold. Soon the pearly gates will open, we shall tread the streets of
right, let's turn over to Esther. Esther chapter 6. Actually, we left off at 5, and we're going to get into 6. We actually left off in 6. But obviously, this is the heart of the book. It's the best part of the book. It's the payoff. We've been waiting for it. And so we'll take our time a little bit. There's some application I want to make, but it's some great stuff. And, I mentioned Wednesday night, Maggie and I got to spend a few days in Branson last week, and we got to go see Esther, the play at the Sight and Sound Theater. And it was really incredible to, see that in the middle of teaching that. And I was telling one person bias that when they found out that I was a minister, I said, now I'm taking off my critical Bible hat a little bit because I know there's going to be things that they have to condense, poetic license. Esther didn't break out in song in the middle of possibly. Maybe she did. I don't know. Maybe they did it. They did it well. But but it was really good and really a faithful adaptation to the story. Just so many things. I was telling, I think, Dolores and Ron, because they had saw it a few months back. When they were doing Haman, and Mordecai was kind of, because, they had to do a lot of fill-in, give some backstory that's not in the text, but helps, tell the story. And so Mordecai was kind of talking about Haman, the enemy of God's people, how he's an Agagite, and, what they did to God's people back when they were coming out of Egypt. And as they were doing this with the lights and the kind of the effects, they had this snake, kind of going through the stage, kind of I don't know what, it was just a background. And that snake was going through. Because remember, what did we say? Haman is twice the enemy of God's people, but who in Scripture is the enemy of God's people? It's always Satan. And so whether it's Pharaoh or Haman, who's the force, who's the influence behind it? Who's trying to snuff out God's people? Satan. And so I told Dolores, somebody who knows their theology that did that, because that's good Bible theology. Now, it's not in the text of Esther, but that's okay. That's okay. All right, so here in this section, we left off. Remember Esther's plan. She first invites the king and Haman to a banquet, but for whatever reason, she doesn't go there immediately. I mean, let's remember, this is the king and the prime minister. This is the king and his right-hand man. He gets things done for the king. He's been elevated above all the other governors to the position now of second, basically. You don't go in there and start pointing fingers, do you? Now, there's people who've tried that, and out the door they go. Yeah, I mean, even if it's not off with your head, you go in there and start, throwing accusations against the vice president of the company with the CEO. And the CEO, the president's going to say, this guy serves me well. You get out of here with that. So she's got to play. She's the queen. She's not the second in command. And so she's got to play this really carefully, doesn't she? Remember that 3 days of praying and fasting? She's going to apply it. She needs it because for whatever reason, we talked about that, maybe just to lower their guard. Haman's probably coming in going, what does she want? What's going on? Haman's probably always snooping around, always got his nose in something. That's the good job of a second-hand man. He knows everything that's going on, so the king can just relax and be the king. Yeah, Matt?
Another thing to consider is the time in history and the view of women.
Right, sure.
Considering how they would probably consider her. She may be queen, but she's not really probably going to have the same clout as his number two man.
Yeah, she's getting all worked up here. What is she, you know. And so she's playing this really, really close to the vest, being really smart. And so, of course, the king's in a good mood, good spirit. I'll give you up to half my kingdom, just a figure of speech. I want to grant you, I want to be gracious to you. And she said, okay, here's my favor. Come back tomorrow night to a private banquet. It's interesting, her approach. And so she doesn't go for it. And we talked about Haman goes out, we're kind of reviewing here at the end of chapter 5, and he's happy. He's wealthy. He's the second in command, and now the queen wants to dine with him and throw a private banquet. But there he sees Mordecai, who won't what? Bow down. Likely giving some sort of divine deity worship as a godlike figure. And so Mordecai, and Haman just can't let that go. He's enraged. Remember, what have we said? Every time somebody gets angry in the book of Esther, do good things happen? No. So same with you and I. Good things don't happen. The anger, wrath of man does not produce the righteousness of God. And so he has this, you remember he goes home, has dinner with his wife and his best friends, and they're, he's telling how great he is and how wealthy and how many sons he has. But this Mordecai, and his wife says, hey, just have a pole set up, 50 cubits. We said 75 feet. Everybody's going to be able to see this. And she says, have him impaled on that pole. Then go and have the banquet. And this delighted him, and he had it built. Then we saw last week in chapter 6, we kind of, first part of 6, the king, remember, this is the same night. Look at the text. That night. So the 24-hour period, Esther uses wisdom. She evaluates the situation. I'm not going to go for it and start pointing fingers at Haman just yet. And so Haman goes home, all upset. His wife comes up with the idea, why don't you build this 75 feet tall pole and impale him on it? He likes that idea, has it constructed. That same night, the king can't sleep. And he has insomnia. And he's eventually going to ask for his royal records to be read. And just so happen, they come across back yonder, likely several years have passed, when there was a plot, remember that in chapter 2? Biknah and Teresh, right? Those sound like a couple of mob guys. They get angry, hello, right? And conspire and try to plot to have the king assassinated, but Mordecai overhears it. And they stop it, and it's recorded, but remember, nothing was done for who? For Mordecai. And it was to the king's advantage to immediately, graciously, liberally reward people who were loyal to him, because that will inspire more what? Loyalty. So you don't want to have people when you know how it is in work situations, when someone that works hard, does a good on a project, and the boss or people just don't even, how do people feel? Well, I don't know why I even work here. Why do I even serve him? Right? Well, that's how it's going to happen in the kingdom. And so the king is bothered by that. He's upset. What was done for this? And they find out nothing was done. And who is this? Mordecai. Oh yeah, Mordecai. And so the king is. Nothing was done. The king said, "Who's in the court?" There's always somebody. The idea here is so he can't sleep, right? It's not just the middle of the night. It's probably now early morning. So think like 3, 4, 5 a.m. There's always somebody working at the White House, right? Somebody always working in the Buckingham Palace. Not everybody's just all asleep, right? There's guards, there's attendants, there's people getting ready for breakfast. I mean, there's always somebody, but it's usually a skeleton crew, right? You bet. What do we call that? The graveyard shift? Well, who's in the court? Looky here. Well, well. His attendant says, Haman. Now, I love this. Why is Haman there before the even normal office hours? Yeah, he can't wait to get in the office, can he? You ever had one of those days? You're supposed to be in the office at 6 or 7, and you're ready to go because it's a big day, right? I mean, he has been dreaming about this now to get his revenge, and so he gets up early so he can get there and be all ready. And when the king says, "Well, who's it? I need to put someone in charge right now of recognizing Mordecai. Who do we have?" We got the prime minister in his office. Will that work? Yeah, that'll work. Go get Haman. Haman's here. And look here, verse 6 now. When Haman entered, the king asked, you got to love this here, what should be done for the man who the king delights to honor? Now Haman thought to himself, who is there that the king would rather honor than me? I mean, he's just dripping with what? Ego and arrogance and pride. He only sees who in his life? Who's Haman see only? Haman. That's it. There's room for no one else, really. I mean, everybody else, his wife, his kids, what are they all? Well, I'm sure he hugged them. I'm sure he, kissed his wife. But they're there only really, what's their purpose probably? Just to serve him. Right. You ever known someone that way? They're only good to people because of what they get out of them. And the minute they can't get anything out of them, they're done with them. That's Haman. He's all about himself. And so he's, oh man. He thought to himself, who is there that the king would rather honor than me? So he answered the king, for the man who the king delights to honor. Now here's insight into what Haman wants. And it's very telling. What does he want? He wants to be king. He wants to be number one. And I'm convinced, even though it's not in the text and I can't prove it biblically, if he gets a chance, he'll take it. Now, it may be years from now. It may be when Xerxes is on his deathbed, or Xerxes is mad at one of his sons. That would often happen, right? A king would say, I'm not giving the next in line, I'm not giving it to my rotten son. And he'll give it to a close advisor, right? They could do that. So whether it's by opportunity or, maybe Haman one day says, hey, cupbearer, food taster, let me go ahead and take the food to the king. And Haman wants the crown. What does this give insight into? What he really wants. What he really wants is to be king. This is what this reveals. And so he says, have him bring the royal robe. The king is worn. And a horse, the king. See that? He wants to be king. This is what his fantasy is. With the royal chest placed on his head. Then let the horse and robe be entrusted to the one of the king's most noble princes. Let the robe, then let the robe and horse be entrusted. Let them lead him on the horse through the city, proclaiming, this is what is done for the man the king delights to honor. He just, all him. That's all he can fantasize about and imagine. And if you think this is the first time he's thought of this, then I got some land out here with some good ocean, right, property view, as they say in the old song. If you'll buy that. He dreamed of this. He's thought of this. And I'm telling you, when you fantasize about something, watch out. Opportunity will always present itself. And so, because that's just how lust works. Usually the only thing that keeps people back is consequence and opportunity. He can't kill the king outright, but he'll look for an opportunity first chance he gets, I believe. This is what he wants. This is what he dreams about. And go at once. Here we go. Lower the boom. Verse 10. The king commanded Haman, get the robe, the horse, do everything you said for Mordecai the Jew. Oh, to be a fly on the wall. Now look, I'm not saying any of you have never wanted to be there when one of your bad coworkers gets let go. But I suspect maybe some of you have wanted to. Boy, I'd love to see this face when the boss finally. I'm just being honest. There's times you want to see someone who's what? It's due coming to them, right? Finally, he's going to get what's due them. Have you seen that? Where you thought years and all this time, and now finally they're going to get what's coming to them, right? And wow, to have seen this look, all of this, go get, I mean, he ain't got his due yet, but this is the beginning of it. This is kind of the first step here. Go get Haman, or go get Mordecai, the Jew, who sits at the king's gate. Do not neglect anything you've recommended. I mean, to the very detail. Oh, man. So Haman got the robe and horse. And in the Esther play, he's like, this is the one the king delights in. Can you imagine that? He's got to make that pronouncement. The guy he hates and wants to kill, and his people that he's plotted to assassinate and have, with mercenaries, have slaughtered and take all their possessions. This guy. Oh my. The irony, we're about to see, I want you to start noticing the ironies here in the text. And here's what's amazing. Again, God's not mentioned directly. But God's doing this. Again, God uses a man who can't sleep to enact his plan. I don't know if we would have come up with that plan if we were God. We probably would have come up with a lot of other, but from Genesis to Revelation, even till now, wouldn't we come up in our minds and our thinking? We would do it another way. Here's how we would do it, right? But God ways are what? He works in ways that are not. They're higher than us. And they are without a doubt, you can't write them off. This is so obvious, the hand of God now, when you look and see this, how God would use all this. And so here is, the king can't sleep, but this is how God's going to work. And so Mordecai's put on again, all of this, we're just kind of giving the information matter-of-factly. I mean, you imagine what Mordecai is thinking. You imagine all of this.
Hey, Robert.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, imagine God. I mean, this is a prime example of, if you want to see if God's got a sense of humor, start making plans.
Right.
I mean, this is clearly a product of omniscience.
Yes.
Because the king doesn't know.
No.
Mordecai probably doesn't really care for the guy.
No.
Haman's the central character.
Right.
And all of a sudden, he's got to present an award, a reward to the very guy he hates, he's trying to kill.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just another example of God's sense of humor.
Yeah, God's sense of humor. Again, I've said before, remember what I said earlier in the class several weeks back? It's almost like God is saying, this is who you exalt? Presidents? Hello? I don't care which president you vote for or which president you voted in the past. This is who you lift up and want to. These are the people that you, celebrities and sports figures, and it's like God is saying, this is who you exalt? God is saying, it's not that we're down on all politicians and sports and celebrities, but God's saying, who do you need to exalt and look to? Only me. All these people with all their faults and their sin, I'm going to bring down anyway, especially the ones that oppose God. And so here's another example of God's, as Matt says, that sense of humor. Look at this. This is who you want to, again, what do we say? These men can't even control their wives. They got to put in an edict and threaten the nation. You will obey. Obey your wives, we say. or else. I mean, that's pathetic, these people. And this is, the reversal. The reversal we're going to see. And I don't care who they are, what they are. We're going to see that. I better not get too forward ahead here, but we're going to see the reversal of the table. Tables are going to turn real quick here on those who are high and mighty. And so, okay, real quick here. So he gets Haman, or gets Mordecai, does this. Afterward, verse 12. Mordecai returned to the... I love this. What's Mordecai go back and do? Goes back and does his job. What he's done every day. He's loyal. He's faithful. He doesn't have the big head. This would be maybe a day to say, calling in. Guys, see you tomorrow. See you maybe next week. Would anybody oppose that in his office? I mean, the king's just paraded him what? This is the time to say, Pate, I am out of here for a while. I'm just saying, hello, put yourself... I'd never think like that, Robert. Well, yeah, sure you wouldn't. You've never been promoted, rewarded, and bragged over and thought, I can come in the office a little bit, just a little late today. I can kind of just stroll in, take an early lunch, leave early. No, Mordecai's back at the gate, doing his job. I love it. All these little details. And so he is there, but Haman... Look at this. My text says rushed. What's that imply? Rushed home. He's mad and he's ready to what? What's his disposition? He's right? He's just, can you imagine this baby, spoiled, rotten, like a child? Right? You ever seen that? Your kids would rush in the house and they would want to tattle. And you know what we did in our house? You take it back outside. I don't want to hear the tattling. We got some teachers in here, my wife, others have taught, no tattling. Acting like a baby. He pushed me. He didn't let me in line. What do we think about that? We don't think very highly, certainly when they're 5 years old. When you're 45 years old. He rushes home. I love it. Mordecai, look at the contrast. Mordecai back doing his job. Haman rushes home to pout. With his head covered in grief, and told Zeresh, his wife, and all his friends. First time he had a little party the day before, he's bragging about all himself, and right now it's still all about him, isn't it? It's always about him. But now it's, poor me. Told him everything that happened. And I love, finally, that there's going to be some truth here. His advisors and his wife finally speak some truth to him. And it makes me wonder, in the play, they kind of, I would maybe a little bit with their they interpret his wife in a more positive light than maybe I would probably give her. But nonetheless, I think they were trying to do that to make a point. She is recognizing if this is who God delights in, you're in trouble. And look what she says here. Since Mordecai, before whom your downfall has started, is of Jewish origin, you cannot stand against him. So we have a lot of questions here about what does she know? How much does she know about the Jews? Apparently she knows something. She's probably heard the stories. Remember we had Rahab, remember during the time of the conquest? They had heard the stories of what God did in Egypt, didn't they? So these have probably carried down through the centuries, these last hundreds of years now, here in the 400 BCs. And so she says, if he's of Jewish origin, you're over. Your plan, you'll surely come to ruin. And so she ends on a strong note here with him. And she says, you're not going to make it. It's fascinating here, the response. And of course, look how it ends. While they were still talking, The king's eunuchs arrived and hurried Haman away to the banquet Esther had prepared. And I love this because if God had given him some time, maybe Haman could have came up with something, right? Maybe if he had a day or two to kind of process what his wife and advisors are saying, he probably could have tried to come back with a counter move. I mean, he's a politician, and what are politicians thinking? One step down the road? No. They're taking how many steps? They're taking 10 steps, 10 moves. Is Haman a skillful politician? You better believe he is. He's elevated above all the other of his rivals. So I love it here that God also says, no, you're not going to have a chance to even think about it. While your wife is telling him you're toast, the king sends his people to get him. I mean, it's going to happen right now. And I just love that. Love that here. And hurried him away to the banquet Esther had prepared. Comments, questions on that? 6. We did some reviewing, then I kind of ran through the new part here, the last part of the chapter. Anything that stand out to you in there? Kind of, we got with the story's building now, so we still got more. Maggie?
Well, I was going to say the same thing. Like, God was definitely involved in that whole, and then He swept away, because if you don't have time to stop and think before being confronted with something, you usually do the wrong thing. And so, yeah, it's interesting that quickly he was
Yeah.
taken. He's still angry, and
His decision making is going to be poor in that condition. Absolutely. Does someone else have a?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
Okay, so how come, like on 13 where it says, Mordecai be of whom you have begun to call, it is of Jewish descent, you will not prevail against him, but will surely fall. How come they didn't think about, they knew he was Jewish before, how come?
Well, now the king, he's now got the favor of the king. So it's now the whole plot's been complicated. Because,
They should have thought about that at the beginning.
Well,
because
yeah.
They knew he was Jewish. So
right,
now they're
but
gonna-
now he's been elevated by the king. See, Mordecai's been honored. Now he's been paraded wearing the king's crown. Mordecai has. Now the king's going to turn around and kill him. It's complicated everything, and because that's what a lot of this is going to be about. Again, before we start assigning moral qualities too much to these Bible characters, I've already told you we have to be careful about moralizing the stories. Vashti, I told you about that. Same with Xerxes and all these men. What drives most of these men is their arrogance. The last thing Xerxes wants to now look like is a fool. And all this is going to put him in a position where he is going to look bad. And we'll see it. Let me just, spoiler alert, does he kill his prime minister or his new queen? Either one is what? It's not good. And so the man Mordecai that he's honored, now he's going to turn around and they kill him in front of the people. What are the people going to think? Well, boy, I don't want to be honored by the king. We're back to why serve the king? Because he could turn around on a whim and what? Kill you. The king's going to be in a pickle here. He's in a tough spot. Yeah, Matt?
God's essentially put his edge around Mordecai.
Yeah.
He's essentially, and even his people, because now he's going to come in, Haman's going to come in and try to plot some, or you would think,
Right.
some plot to the king that, these people are subversive. Well, here he's got an example of the Jewish people who actually saved his life.
Yeah, yeah. So he can't go down that road and accuse them of being a bunch of, plotting, treacherous, because, here's a great example of a loyal Jew. So, do you see, what did Jesus do often with these traps they tried to put in front of him?
Turn them on them.
He's turned them on them, right? Is it lawful to pay taxes to Caesar? Do you understand how volatile of a question that was? The Jews are ready to explode in the first century. Matter of fact, they had the zealots. They were always rebelling, and the Romans were having to put them down, little rebellions. And Pontius Pilate, we know historically, had been threatened already from the emperor, get your region under control. If you don't, you're out of there. And so the Jews were just ready for a fight, ready to rebel. And so if Jesus, as this Messiah, says pay taxes, well, then he's discredited. If he says forget the Romans, don't pay your taxes. Now the Romans can get him, right? So they've got him, right? But were the Pharisees smart, by the way? Now, let me tell you something. These people memorized the scriptures at 10, 12 years old. Do you know that? They were sharp. They were intelligent. And what does Jesus do with them time and time again? Makes them look like fools. These are not fools, are they? On surface, they're not. They are. Is Haman a fool? In a sense, now he's a fool morally, but intelligent-wise, is he a sharp guy? You better believe he is. But the wisdom of man versus the wisdom of God is what? Worlds apart. And you see that here in this example. Does someone have a hand, a comment? That's all? Yeah, Kathy? Okay. Yeah. They didn't apply it. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well,
Go ahead.
Robert, the other thing about really smart people, in my field, I work with a lot of them. They have a tendency to come to know they're smart.
Right.
It's like, a supermodel or something. They know they're attractive. Well,
Right.
these smart people, they come to rely on that. They come to trade on it.
Yeah.
And so they kind of lose, they kind of lose any other knowledge,
Yeah.
because, well, I'm so smart and I know everything.
Yeah. That's right. And it ends up being, as we're going to see here, spoiler alert, their downfall because they lack humility of any sort that says, hey, I need to learn, I need to be careful. And so, absolutely here. So here we get into chapter 7, and let's quickly here. Let's read verses 1 through 4. Who'd like that? Esther 7, 1 through 4. Okay, Dolores?
Now the king and Haman came to drink wine with Esther the queen. And the king said to Esther on the second day also, as they drank their wine at the banquet, "What is your petition, Queen Esther? It shall be granted you. And what is your request? Even to half of the kingdom it shall be done." Then Queen Esther answered and said, "If I have found favor in your sight, O king, and if it pleases your sight, O king, and if it please the king, let my life be given me as my petition and my people as my request. For we have been sold, I and my people, to be destroyed, to be killed, and to be annihilated. Now, if we had only been sold as slaves, men and women, I would have remained silent, but the trouble would not be commensurate with the annoyance to the king."
Okay, so here we are, second night, second banquet, private banquet. At some point, the king looks at the queen, and for a third time, when she approaches, uninvited, he extends the scepter. She's not executed. What do you want? You're bothered. I'll give you up to half the kingdom. On the first banquet we saw, what do you want, Esther? I'll give you half the kingdom. And now, come back another banquet, I'm going to give you the third time. This is the third time the king has said, ask what you want. And now it's time. Okay? We've heard the old saying, don't make me ask 2 or 3 times, right? You know what happens on that second or third time you ask them, right? What do you want for dinner? What do you want? All right, fine, we're going here. Well, I didn't want that. Well, I asked you what? 2 times. Esther, now you got to do it. And so she, and I love this here. We'll come into this next week. We'll get into this more. But she is very careful how she does this. She asked for 2 things. I want my life and the life of my people. And she does it in a very masterful way. She says, if I found favor. Has she found favor? And he would know that, right? Of course you found favor, queen. I chose you. You were above everybody else. If it pleases you, grant my life and spare my people. For I and my people have been sold to be destroyed, killed, annihilated. If it had been merely sold as male and female slaves, I would never have kept quiet, because no such distress would justify disturbing the king. She's very masterful here. She's skilled how she approaches this. She draws him in, we're going to see next week. It's really, it's kind of, I would use an analogy out of another story in the Old Testament. I mean, it's different, but I would just say the tactic a little bit is, remember when Nathan the prophet went to David? He didn't start out with, King, you are an adulterer and you're a murderer and you messed up. No. He what? Tells him a story. And what does he get David to invest in, that story? Remember that story?
The person who's wrong.
Yeah, the person who's wrong. Justice. He gets this sense of justice. It's wrong. Look here. And that's what she does here. Do I find favor in your sight? Well, of course you do. I don't even want to bother you. We'll talk about this. If I was being sold into slavery, we'll talk about that. I wouldn't bother you. But in my life, in my people's life. Now notice, she doesn't start out with what? Haman and... You see her approach? It matters. It matters how we talk to people. Would she have been justified on principle, on point, to come in and say, he's the man, look what... She'd have been, yes. Would that be wise and the right approach? No. You may be right to go in and just vent to the boss tomorrow morning. Just do it. Try it. You're right and justified. But if that's not the right approach and manner and spirit and tact, you're probably going to be shown the door just as quick as you're brought in. There's a way to do things. And it takes wisdom. If we allow our emotions and anger and fear to control us, do you think Esther was emotional about this whole thing? Yes. Do you think she's angry even at Haman? Do you think when she sees, she's had to have a feast and eat with him twice, and what does she probably think about him personally? Not very well. But she's not able to let those emotions cloud her what? It is the classic, I'm sorry, old worn-out line from the Godfather series. It's business, not personal. What happens when you take it personal? You cloud your what? Clouds your judgment. And so there's a tact here. I want you to see a practical strategy that she's setting him up. Yeah, she's getting it all. Yeah, we'll give somebody have a. Yeah, Jeff, I'll give you the last word.
I remember when the kids were smaller, I was mad, and I remember my dad always say, "Don't discipline them when you're angry."
Yeah.
You make it bad.
Absolutely. Don't go in there and yell at the boss. Right? Now, sometimes you can. I know sometimes you're right people, right relationships. I understand that. But most of the time, yelling at your boss, not going to get you anywhere. Even if you're justified, right? Probably get you out the door. So, good stuff here. We'll look at this and unfold and look for the reversal and the ironies. Go ahead and read the rest of the chapter, and we'll get into it some more. All right.
And exchange it someday for a crown.